calling this Committee on Higher Education and Technology to order. We're having an info briefing on Wednesday, January 4th, 1 p.m., conference room 329, also on Zoom. And we're joined by Vice Chair Janae Capella, Higher Education Chair Justin Woodson, Education Vice Chair Lisa Martin, and Representative Kirsten Kahaloa. So we are going to be hearing from the University of Hawaii with respect to, they're going to be providing an overview of the status of the UH system, providing some updates on ongoing initiatives, and discussing current challenges. So thank you so much for joining us, and we're going to begin with UH President David Lasner. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for this opportunity. Happy New Year, everybody, and congratulations on opening your first hearing. What I'd like to do today is we have a cast of not quite thousands, but we have leaders from all the parts of our university system and our major academic units. So we'll have at least the heads come up to talk a little bit about their units. So I will do the opening section, and then we'll have a rotating cast of co-sitters with me. So just quickly, the University of Hawaii, we're about 115 years old now. We're a unique aspect about higher education, public higher education in Hawaii, is that we have one university system that includes all public post-secondary education. So the 7 community colleges, the 2 regional baccalaureate universities, and the major research university, UH Manoa, all under one board of regents and one president. That provides tremendous opportunities for us to be able to serve students. Efficiency is part of it, but as importantly is the opportunity to create mobility for students to move from wherever they are starting, both physically and academically, on throughout the rest of the system. And it's something that we are working at every day. My assessment is we're about as good as anybody in the country at this, and we still have to keep getting better as we go. So just a couple of highlights of what we've been doing over the past few years. It's easy to forget what COVID was like, but when I look back, I'm just incredibly proud of the work of our faculty, our students, and our administrators at navigating COVID-19 across these last few years. We stayed quite healthy. We were in operation online faster than almost anyone. Our students continued to matriculate and graduate as they were going, and we succeeded financially. We were all faced with dire predictions, and the federal stimulus funds really bailed us out, both in terms of providing us what we needed to keep our students and faculty healthy, but also to support the technology that we needed to really move totally online. Everybody had to do their part. Administrators worked really around the clock. Our healthcare professionals were engaged, both serving the community, but also serving the university. On every island, we were a key part of the state's response, from nurses and nursing students giving vaccinations, to engineers helping figure out ventilators when we thought there was going to be a ventilator shortage. Our faculty did an amazing job of adapting from teaching in the classroom on 2 or 3 weeks notice to moving totally online, and then staying online, and then rolling with unpredictable punches as from semester to semester the health conditions changed, with surges, with variants, with different characteristics. And our students persevered through great unpredictability and really stuck with it. including helping each other and frankly sometimes having to help their faculty work through the technology issues that they were faced with. So here we are at what I hope is the other end of it. We're always talking about enrollment, and our enrollment challenges look a lot like what's taking place across the country. Community colleges are really looking at decreased enrollments in every state in the nation. The regional universities and smaller comprehensives are also struggling for students, and our research university is doing great. Not everyone is doing as well as we are, both at UH Manoa and for the UH system as a whole. We actually had the largest entering class in our history just this fall, and last year we also had the largest entering class at UH Manoa in our history. So we're reaching back to students, and we're partnering a lot with the Department of Education to try to keep that moving. We have kept moving the needle forward. You know, every campus has a slightly different story, but in general, our graduation rates, that is, how many of our students are graduating within 4 years and 6 years for the universities, and 2 and 3 years for the community colleges. Those numbers are improving, and the key metric there is our first-year retention rates. If we can keep students from the first year to the second year, we're more likely to see them through to graduation. And we've been focused almost since I've been in this job on trying to diversify our funding sources from our reliance on state general funds and tuition. And last year, again, our 2 primary other sources of funding were at their highest levels, again, in UH history. So there's a lot to be very proud of, and this is the work of all the people you see here and all the people they work with, all of our faculty who are teaching. Everybody has to do their part to achieve these kinds of outcomes that you see, and this is taking place on every island. So we have a new UH strategic plan, and I don't know if Stephanie passed that out to you.
The members should have it.
The membership, you all have copies of something that looks like this, physically? Oh. Staff have it. It's on its way to you. So I'm very proud because this has been off the press for like days. The Board of Regents adopted the strategic plan in November in their meeting at Hilo. And so it's got pretty pictures and the language to lay out what we're trying to do. And we have the cheat sheet version in case you want to remember all of the key imperatives. We have the short card as well. So I'll just highlight what these things are. This was a very intensely collaborative process that involved both online and in-person gathering with a system-wide steering committee made up of students, faculty, staff from across our 10 campuses. And it was really a record project. Vice President Halbert and Pearl Imani-Boshi, who unfortunately just retired last week, were really the leads on getting this thing through. And Pearl was pretty determined not to retire until it was done, which really meant it had to be done before she retired. So we have 4 themes. The first one is to fulfill, and you can read along, and so I won't say much because you have it in paper as well, but fulfilling our kuleana to Hawaiians and Hawaii. We've been focused on language that we've used, like become an indigenous serving Hawaiian institution, Native Hawaiian place of learning. And I really want to credit our regents for pushing us even harder that the university has to step up and do more than just look at our Hawaiian programs and serve our Hawaiian students and faculty and all of that means. They really challenged us to step up and embrace the necessity for the University of Hawaii to be a real significant part of what I'll just call the reconciliation of how are we all going to live together in this fabulous place better than we are right now. And that requires addressing many of the injustices of the past 100 and, depending on when you want to start counting, 125, 150, 175 years involving erasure of language, culture, and other things. And clearly UH has a very significant role in doing so, as we have been doing for the last decades for sure, particularly in language and culture. The second one is about developing successful students for a better future. This is a partnership with Hawaii P20 and the State Department of Education. I have said before, the statistic that scares me most right now about the future of the state is, and I think Chair Woodson has heard me say this, the decrease in the college going rate among our public high school graduates. And that dropped from, we got it up to about 56, 55, and it dropped to 50 with the pandemic, and we're struggling to get that back up again, and even that isn't high enough. And we know that students who go to college are, they're healthier, they live longer, less likely to draw on social services, less likely to be incarcerated, less likely to lose their jobs in a recession. They get their jobs back faster after a recession. They vote more, they volunteer more, and that's an intergenerational effect. So when we capture one generation, then it flows through to their children, who are also more likely to go to college. And that's just something we all have to figure out how to do better as a state, and we can stratify this by subpopulations as well to see where we need, who needs the most help, geographically, ethnically, economically. The third one is, it's a little bit new for us, and it's a real strong focus on workforce. And that's to say, it isn't enough to just get people degrees. We actually need to do a better job of preparing our students for the best jobs that exist here in this state. And that requires a little more focus than we've tended to have in the past. And at the same time, we also have to be doing the work to be creating more good jobs that our students can graduate and prepare for and thrive in. And we have more detail on that as well in the plan. And lastly is our responsibility for developing a stronger economy. There's really no place in the country that has developed a strong economy without a great university at the core of that activity. And we've used this language around research and innovation enterprise, and we're looking at hubs. And we've laid out a specific set of hubs in the plan where we believe we have the opportunity to create significant economic activity and bring revenue in from other places, as well as create great jobs for ourselves. So as we, and you can see those are on the back of the last page, and they're the areas you would expect around climate, environment, astronomy, health and wellness, food, and the like. And this last one really brings together our education mission, where we have to educate our students in these areas and our faculty scholarship as well, which is why we have it tied into innovation and research, because that will be the opportunity to create new jobs as well as just fill the jobs that we have here today. I'll go a little more quickly now. In the process of developing this, we talked about this, what I just gave you, the imperatives are sort of the vertical, these are the things we have to do. But we also identified some themes that really cut across all of those that we know we have to weave into each of those verticals. So these are sort of the horizontals, if you want to think about a plan working both ways. And you can see these here again, as we're working in the areas of workforce, education, innovation, we want to bring in our emphasis on Hawaiian place of learning. We want to always be thinking about all parts of the university system as responsible for the entire state, not just for one particular island or region. And that's a challenge to all of us to always remember that, especially with what we've learned through COVID, everybody can serve everywhere if we get our act together. And language that we used decades ago was working together as a system. And I think that's part of what we talk about as well. We need a continued and strong focus on diversity and equity across all that we do. We need to not let up on sustainability. That's our Board of Regents embraced that in our mission statement about, probably 8 years ago. And I think we need to remember that in all that we do. And then we need to pay attention to stewardship. We're blessed and reminded that we are entrusted with both public general funds that you appropriate. We are blessed with tuition that our students and their families entrust us with for their education. And the extramural funding that we receive is granted to us by mostly the federal government, but others, not just because they love the university, which of course they all do, but because they believe we are the enterprise that can help them achieve their mission that they care about for the people of Hawaii, and if it's the federal government, largely for the nation as well. So with that, let me flip over to our, first our budget operating request, and Calvert, I think, will join me. Calvert Young is our Vice President for Budget and Finance and Chief Financial Officer, and I will play Vanna for you since I'm so good.
Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair. So this is somewhat of a precursor preview. I know this is not the right subject matter committee, but we thought for this committee, give you a good context for what the university has requested for the upcoming legislative biennium. And so the budget process for the university is somewhat unique compared to other departments in that we solicit ideas and funding opportunities or requests throughout the entire system. The administration proposes a budget request for new additional general fund support through the Board of Regents is submitted to the legislature and to the executive branch of the governor. So what these slides highlight is representative of the conclusion of that process internally to UH. So the university process, sorry, David, I forgot my glasses. For this slide, for the biennium, we identified a number of operating requests broken up by campuses, the themes of which are highlighted as restoration of funds primarily. Over the last several years during the pandemic, the legislature has had to reduce or has reduced general fund support from prior years to the university. It slowly has come back as the pandemic has waned over the last 2 years, but as we currently sit, it has not returned to pre-2020 levels. So the request is to get back to funding service levels back to where they were, I guess, at the peak, which would have been 2019 to 2020. Also to try and sustain some of that funding, because some of the funding that has come back in the last legislative session was not identified as recurring funding. So it's difficult to maintain sustained services if they are only funded on an annual basis. And then one of the primary initiatives, you folks are probably very familiar, we've tried to expand the Hawaii Promise program, which is a program run out of the community college level, which is an essentially free college program. So it's a need-based program that the state provides last dollar funding support for those community college students that have demonstrated calculated financial need. That program has been very successful academically, also very successful in terms of matriculated students and getting them over to the four-year campuses. However, there's no Hawaii Promise program at the four-year campuses. So we have tried previously to create the program statutorily. That has not been successful thus far, but the funding has also been short as the program has become more successful. So right now, the legislature funds just about 3.5–5 million within the community college program, but the total cost of the program from year to year can exceed 5 million. So the community colleges has been providing that absence of funding to fund that gap. But the request is to, one, provide the additional funding to shore that program up, at the community college, and then 2, to expand it to the 4-year programs, 4-year campuses, sorry. And then the rest of the request identifies items such as campus facilities and core services. So these are basically core mission support items, and they run from things such as security at various campuses, IT support, further development of Academy of Creative Media at our UH West Oahu campus, and then expansion of early college program, which this is another one that helps high school students matriculating to college credits, but the way it has been previously run is that all of this funding is going towards into the DOE, which the university has previously supported with the DOE. We want the funding to go to the DOE so that the DOE can identify the classes that they would need or want for each individual campus for UH to provide. So that is a great program structure. We're not asking for that money to come directly to UH. What we are requesting is that it's time to expand early college so that UH can provide more college level support beyond just academics in the classroom. So counseling services, college placement services, that exists at UH, within UH, to expand those types of services. That's what that request would be. And then further initiatives that support various aspects of student success at the individual campuses, and they vary. They can be things such as health center improvements, counseling services, mental health aspects, and those are itemized out for you there. And then there's other items that relate to addressing state needs. So these can be workforce items in various industries. The big one that you probably will see is nursing. Now on these slides, what I highlight in the first 2 columns are the administration's requests with the Board of Regents approval that has been submitted to the governor, and you folks have a copy as the legislative process. The second column, though, actually represents what has thus far been included in the governor's executive budget submittal to the legislature at mid-December. Now, keep in mind that there was a transition, right, from one administration to the next, so the budget request was actually submitted to the prior administration, and the current governor administration has included what would be considered a static state, or what is minimally agreed upon. There are a number of items that are left out of the governor's executive budget thus far that were approved by the Board of Regents, but that's not to say that it is without the governor's or the executive branch's support. The executive branch continues to work on refining on what would be platform items that the executive would send down, and that could require augmentation to what was already submitted back in mid-December. So for the university, the total request in the operating budget side was roughly 56 and 59 million respectively in years of the biennium across all of those items that I covered. The governor has included a good portion of those items in there, but they will likely, and we are hopeful that they will continue to be augmented and refined. The next set of slides actually goes through a little bit more details and understanding, for an issue of time and trying to get to Q&A more quickly. They do include a little bit more details regarding the PRRR, which you might see, program review reduction restorations. This is in the budget, not unique necessarily to UH, but that represents the items that were, as I mentioned, reduced in prior years, restored to some extent this past legislative session, but not all of them are recurring or have been restored as recurring. So some of them will require to be reinstated as sustained funding. Others they were not included for restoration in this past legislative year, so they will be asked that we come back to 2020 level of funding. And graphically or illustratively, this slide here shows you what that gap is. So the peak year was actually prior to FY21. And from then, there was reductions in each year for a number of reasons. And then in the last year, the 2022 legislature for FY23 started restoring some of what was previously reduced, but not all the way. And so the gap that we're asking for is actually the portion that is highlighted in green. It amounts to about 17.5 million. And then following slide also details for you those specific items related to sustained funding. So these were items that were restored but were not put in as recurring. So they were things that previously did exist prior to 2021. And they do include subsidy funding for athletics at both the Manoa and Hilo campuses, and then funding for expansion of various programs. But since the funding was reduced, we can continue to operate the programs, but we're asking that they be replaced in the budget in a way that would be recurring. The Hawaii Promise slide gives you a little bit more details about the program. Currently, right now, we're looking at a program only in the community colleges for about let's call it like in excess of 5.6 million. That satisfies, thus far, the lion's share of all the need that exists within the community colleges based on the cohort or those matriculating previously in the community colleges. We're asking for an expansion of about 19 million that would help solidify the program for all of the potential need as we've seen it grow at the community colleges. That would be about 3.7 million of that would be at the community college. And then the rest, we're going to say about 18 plus million of that would be to expand the program to the 4-year campuses. And this slide provides you, based on the current, most recent years, in terms of the group of need that exists at all the 4-year campuses. If Hawaii Promise was expanded in the way it is operated at the community colleges to the 4-year campuses, we're looking at about 12 plus million at Manoa, about 1.7 million at Hilo, and about 5 million at UH West Oahu. And this is based on the students matriculating at those campuses for their amount of demonstrated need. Included within the budget requests also are some industry initiatives. So these will be items that we have identified with some stakeholder partners about needs that the university could help address workforce-wise. And the big one is in the area of the health industry. And do you want me to go over this, David, or?
I think if they have questions, they can maybe ask.
So working with the Healthcare Association of Hawaii, there was a number of critical areas identified that the state of Hawaii needs and that the University of Hawaii can help bolster and address to ignite workforce needs. Of course, in the health industry, a lot of medical professions, but we're not only talking about physician level, we're talking about medical assistants, nurses, critical care workers, and there's a large part of that. Some of those programs at UH may need to get expanded to help it grow the pipeline, but others also we need help with the industry and with the workforce, providing a marketplace for our graduates to work, but also providing the necessary skills that the marketplace would desire. And that's the part that UH would like to desire. And there is a funding request in the UH budget request to help advance the UH portion. It's initial 2-year funding, but we're acknowledging that this probably has a very longer horizon to build the UH capacity to provide what the overall industry would need statewide. The other part of the budget is beyond the operating budget is the capital improvement budget, and I think Vice President Gouveia may want to cover this for you.
And let me just add, while Vice President Gouveia is coming up, she's our Vice President for Administration. which is everything that isn't in someone else's title.
Thank you for joining us.
We have expertise, so Vice President Halbert helped assemble the healthcare ask, and then we have people from each of the campuses who assembled their part of it. So depending on the Q&A, we can dig into a whole bunch of detail on any of these things.
Okay, good afternoon, Jan Govea here. So I have the privilege of presenting the capital improvement strategy for the University of Hawaii. For the last 6 years, our strategy has been to renew, improve, and modernize our existing spaces. There was a lot of emphasis in the prior years on our deferred maintenance backlog, and that is still important. But we wanted to make sure that as we went through, our facilities, we didn't just replace like for like. We thought about what that whole experience would be for our students, our faculty, and our visitors. And we wanted to make sure that we were delivering a space that really fostered innovation and learning and collaboration. And so there's a lot that goes into a design that thinks about furniture and colors and things of that nature, as well as technology. And so when we move forward for the next 6 years, we're building on that strategy of also looking at how efficiently we're using the spaces that we are modernizing. Oftentimes we have classrooms that may be dedicated for one particular program, English or math. We are really trying to build more flexible spaces so that it can actually support multiple users and different types of activities that can all occur in the same type of space. So that involves a little bit of working with the departments and getting them to meet us halfway, as well as, again, taking advantage of some modern design techniques that allows us to be that flexible. In addition to that, we use a lot of data to see how many classes are actually going to be coming through a space, and we try to prioritize those spaces that have higher utilization. And we also, again, evaluate the deferred maintenance backlog on that to make sure that with the limited dollars that we do have, we are able to maximize and stretch out that dollar as far as we can. So with that as the baseline strategy, we have put together a CIP biennium budget that the Board of Regents approved. I won't go over it in detail. It's kind of all laid out for you here. In total, for FY24, we believe a minimum of $262.5 million is really what is necessary to maintain all of our facilities across all of our 10 campuses really at an acceptable level. And another $296 million in FY25. The governor, as you can see in the next two columns, included $117.5 million in year one and $125 million in year two as part of his executive package. But in short, the greatest emphasis in our CIP budget request is continuing our Renew, Improve, and Modernization program, along with some key line items that require special attention, and we just want to pull it out and make sure that it's treated as a holistic project. And those, I won't, again, go into detail. It's all in front of you there, but the same basic strategy is implemented here. And so, again, as we try to really build on what we've done in the past and make sure that it all makes sense and aligns, again, we can't emphasize enough how the RIM program gives us that flexibility to do that kind of adequate planning. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we will transition to the 4 major academic units.
We were going to hold Q&A until after, unless you have to head off to another.
2 o'clock, but if that's going to...
Yeah, I think we'll have time.
Okay, first up is UH Manoa, and we have Provost Michael Bruno.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members. Happy New Year.
Likewise.
So the slide is up there. I was thinking about one way to summarize that entire slide. And I'll say it like this. Manoa seeks to become truly a student-centric research university grounded in this place, grounded in who we are and where we are. That's a lot. And a lot of people would say, well, those things are mutually exclusive. Being an R1 university, and first, what's an R1 university? To put it into context, so there's about 3,000 four-year universities in the U.S. Under 150 of those are classified by the Carnegie Foundation as Research 1. So we're in an elite group, and a lot of people might think, well, that means your primary focus is on that research. And it cannot be. I mean, what we really strongly believe and what we laid out in the Manoa strategic plan that came out just before the pandemic essentially says that none of that matters if that research doesn't contribute to student learning, to student understanding, and to student career success. And we really believe that. In fact, we often end up telling potential new faculty, if that's not your interest, you can go to a national lab, you can go to Google and Amazon and Apple and all the rest. You're here to promote student learning, and if that can be done via your research, that's what we're looking for. So, so that's in essence what that is saying. We have a lot of bragging points. We had record enrollment. We have record research grants. We have all-time record graduation rates. But we know we have a lot to do. And the pandemic really brought a lot of that into sharp focus. In particular, the primary needs being student health, student wellness, student academic success, because again, in our conduct of our meetings and surveys, preparing the strategic plan, it becomes really evident that we cannot possibly expect a student to have success in the classroom if they don't feel like they belong, if they're not part of a community, if we're not taking care of their not just academic advising, but their health and wellness, including mental health counseling. We saw that, obviously. You heard a lot about that during the pandemic. So we're redoubling efforts in those areas, adding academic advisors, adding mental health counselors, adding different ways for students to reach out to us and describe their needs and to begin to address those needs. And so lots of lessons learned during the pandemic. We are refreshing the strategic plan as we speak, using those lessons learned. So the requests are really centered, and I think you're going to see that from my colleagues, really centered in student academic success, student wellness, and then how does that then move into, and for us via research and creative work, to student career success. And as the president indicated, we've identified areas where we have really world-class strength, healthcare, for Manoa, space sciences, sustainability, a few other areas where we really are going to be investing in. But again, areas that we know we can bring students in, areas that we know we can push students out into those career paths. So that's Manoa.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Chancellor Bonnie Irwin from UH-ELO.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair. Much of what Michael said is true about UH-ELO as well. We are not an R1, however, but our faculty are engaged in research across the board, and we do engage students in that work. Our theme for the campus is connecting learning, life, and aloha. We live on the most amazing learning laboratory, arguably in the world, on Hawaii Island. And so our goal is to make sure our programs are connected to the land and the community in whatever ways we can. And for two reasons. One is promoting regional stewardship. We believe that we need to give back to our community, but the other is to give students hands-on practical experience in their disciplines. So while we have a full portfolio of undergraduate programs, we try to import in all of those hands-on experiences, whether that be research, service. We also have study away programs. 50% of our students are from Hawaii Island, so we do encourage them to study away for a semester, either internationally or in another state on the continent. Of the 50 remaining percent of our enrollment, it's about half and half, roughly, of other Hawaiian students from other islands and students from out of state. We do have some magnet programs in our portfolio, such as marine science. Both Manoa and Hilo attract a number of students from out of state for marine science programs. It's where better to study the ocean than when you're surrounded by it, of course. And many of our other programs have that cachet as well, because again, Hawaii Island is just such a special place. We've been named at least 4 years running now as the most diverse national university in the country. We take great pride in our ethnic diversity, and we're really doubling down now on equity. We're looking at the data and making sure that our diverse community of students, that everyone is thriving. And when we encounter obstacles, we want to make sure we get those out of the way so our students will continue to thrive. So in addition to that portfolio of undergraduate programs, we do have selected graduate programs. Our master's programs are directed toward community workforce needs. We have a master's program in counseling psychology, which is unique in the UH system, prepares people to go out and be mental health counselors, which, as you know, is a growing need, not just on our island, but across the state. We have a master's program in heritage management that trains students in ways to manage our historic and cultural sites with the appropriate respect for the culture behind it, as well as the grounding in history and anthropology to do that work well. Also, we have graduate programs in pharmacy. We do have the pharmacy college for the entire UH system. Nursing, we have undergraduate nursing as well as a doctor of nursing practice. And we have post-baccalaureate training for teachers. So our program currently is a student gets a bachelor's degree in a discipline, and then they can get their teaching license within a year of the graduate program. And if they want to stay, they can then get a master's in education. We are working on an undergraduate program as well. But that's a sense of what we have in terms of our graduate programs, in addition, of course, to Hawaiian language revitalization and culture revitalization. Our College of Hawaiian Language has become known internationally for the work they do in language revitalization. And they also partner across our campus with other units to bring that notion of a Hawaiian place of learning to all of our programs. In addition, as a smaller campus, we are Division II athletics. So here in Hawaii, we do play Hawaii Pacific and Chaminade in our conference. And occasionally we take on Manoa in an exhibition game, but they're in a different league, literally, than we are. But that is why we're asking for further support. About 7% of our students are athletes. And their GPAs have been going up every semester I've been at UH Hilo. So I'm really proud of the work that our coaches and staff do in athletics to really keep students on task. They are students first and then athletes. But as you might imagine, our programs are also very popular on Hawaii Island. Having athletics and performing arts on our campus is a great draw for our community. And so that's another thing we're very proud of. Other types of student engagement are what we call high-impact practices. So I mentioned the Center for Community Engagement. They do work in what we call service learning, where students not just volunteer, but they apply their academic knowledge to service opportunities in the community. We also have undergraduate research programs, the aforementioned study away programs, and internships in many of our disciplines, because we have found that having those extra supplemental activities on top of traditional classroom learning is what really makes the difference in terms of career success. Another opportunity for students is peer mentoring. We find that students often learn better when a upperclassman perhaps is involved in that and not just the faculty member. A good friend of mine once told me when I was a junior faculty member, our students don't want to grow up to be us, they want to grow up to be seniors and graduate. And so putting those more experienced students together with our freshmen and sophomores is something that we're trying to build. We've got a lot of it already, but we're trying to expand it. And so you'll find our items in the budget requests are student support, internships, transfer center, as well as workforce faculty hires. And counseling psychology, for example, is at capacity with the current staffing. We can expand the program if we have more staff. Similar with administration of justice, it's a good pathway to law enforcement careers, which many of our students are interested in. And then nursing and education would be the other areas that we're really working to expand on our campus. And like my colleagues, I'll be available if you have questions later on.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
If I could interrupt just briefly, because I know that Rep. Mariyoshi has to go to another meeting. Did you have a question for Vice President Govea about facilities? Yeah. Do you have any questions?
Yes.
Good to see you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. So I've been hearing from people at UH that you're implementing kind of an open concept in a lot of places, different offices and things like that. And I talked to people at Hawaiian Airlines too, just friends there, about their open concept implementation and layout. And it seems like there's a lot of animosity towards the concept. And in the research I've read about it too, it seems like having an open concept actually decreases the interaction between people just because no one wants to bother anyone else. People tend to put in headphones or kind of, not take phone calls and things like that. I'm wondering why this, it seems like a lot of places are no longer implementing the open office concept just because of these detriments. I'm wondering why UH is moving towards that concept, and especially from offices that may have confidential information that's being shared or whatnot, HR and whatnot. It just seems like that might be a huge impediment to them doing their work.
Yeah, we have been hearing that, and so I did work at Hawaiian Airlines. I came from there. I'm very
That's why I
familiar with
asked
that layout. We're not exclusively doing open office. Hawaiian is exclusively open office. So what we are doing is we're incorporating concepts that better utilize the space. There are, for example, we may have some faculty, let's say, who will only be on campus on Tuesday and Thursday and maybe during office hours. Do they need to have an entire private office space, that takes up an area of, an entire year? So we try to work directly with departments. We work directly with departments to see if there's a middle of the road, middle ground area that we can get to that, again, tries to increase the utilization of the footprint. So there are furniture, and the notion of open spaces, I think, has different definitions to different people. We use the term maybe more flexible spaces, so you can still have privacy and you can still use more modern furniture. It may not go all the way to the ceiling because that's when you start, when departments move around, as departments expand or shrink, we don't want to have to bring in an entire demolition crew every time that changes.
And I appreciate the concept of the flexibility. I mean, my sister's law firm is doing the same thing. They're doing this kind of hotel concept where no one gets an office. You just show up and they assign you a desk, but everything's in the cloud for them. My concern is more for offices like HR that might have more confidential information being discussed. If an employee complains about something or payroll or things like that, that if you don't have the privacy for those offices, that information might be very difficult to discuss it.
Well, confidentiality is always first and foremost. So if we cannot accommodate that, then obviously we wouldn't do it. But
Okay.
I should say that our HR office is probably one of the first offices that went to a more open, flexible cubicle style office. it's spaces where you do your work and where you, if you need to have confidential conversations, we provide instead way more conference rooms. One person, 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, 8 people size conference rooms that you can go in and have those private conversations with. That way, that allows more floor space to be available for more people, to be utilized for either, again, conference rooms, meeting rooms, as well as places to have confidential conversations, and then you can go back to your desk and do your work there. But we also, again, have installed furniture that goes pretty far high up that keeps that confidentiality in place. But we will, definitely reevaluate our design as we move forward to take those concepts, make sure that we
Okay. no,
preserve that.
I'm glad that confidentiality is is in the on the
Absolutely.
radar. I'm still a little worried about the open office concept, just from the implementation at Hawaiian Airlines. It just doesn't seem to have gone very, very well. And other places on the mainland that I've talked to, that I have friends at working at, it just doesn't
Yeah.
seem like the best dynamic that it creates
Sure.
between employees.
I think I want to volunteer Vice President Yoshimi. You don't have to come up, but just,
If you would like to take a tour,
Sorry, Amy, I don't want to
Yeah,
take too
and
much
no,
time.
and we can actually, like, when we
Oh,
come
to-
tour on the 20th,
Yeah.
then maybe we can take a look
our
at some
our
of these
IT
structures.
center is actually
Yeah.
one of the buildings where we really pioneered this. And as Jan said, the cubicles are partly high, lots of meeting spaces, lots of resistance, and you could wander around and see what people think.
Yeah, we'll come
Yeah.
take a look.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because
thank
it was
you.
designed thoughtfully with this all in mind.
Okay,
Thank you.
And doesn't look anything like Hawaiian.
It's Hawaiian.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Chancellor Mainet Benham from UH West Oahu.
Sorry about that. I just want to make sure that the representative's question was answered before he had to leave, so.
Yes. Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
Aloha Chair and Vice Chair. Similar to my sister four-year campuses and the UH system, UH West Oahu is also mission-driven. Our value proposition is one of stewardship of the communities that we serve, and in particular, investing in strengthening our programs and pathways that enable our students to achieve their career aspirations. So as you can see, we have several hallmarks that we would like to share with you. Perhaps a must-mention hallmark is the grand opening of the Academy for Creative Media building at UH West Oahu, which is part of the University Hawaii system's commitment to provide Hawaii students an opportunity to pursue their digital dreams. Currently, our UH West Oahu Creative Media program serves 290 majors, a little over 800 students from other majors that synthesize multiple creative media technologies, future technologies. Another example of our hallmarks of stewardship is our partnership with the Kapolei Chamber of Commerce. In October of 2022, we hosted our 4th Campbell Kapolei High School Career Expo for all their 9th graders. And this was the University of Hawaii West Oahu's second in-person event since the expo had begun. So what the Chamber does is that it brings together about 80 or 90 employers which align with the high school academies. And with the support of the Kamehameha schools, they bus this year 1,300 students to our campus where they learn more about career opportunities from employers and our UH West Oahu faculty and staff, hence strengthening the pipeline between our educational institutions and our workforce. This past year, we had many of the administrators and leaders from Waianae and Nanakuli also there, because we intend to expand that to Waianae and Nanakuli High School as well. So we continue to strengthen our degree programs that meet both the regional and Hawaii state needs. An example is that this past fall semester, we did establish UH West Oahu's pre-nursing pathway in partnership with UH Manoa. So students, what they do is they enroll in a streamlined pathway program in nursing, beginning with 3 semesters as UH West Oahu students, fulfilling all the general requirements and prerequisite courses. And upon acceptance into Nawson's nursing program, students complete an additional 3 years or 6 semesters as UH Manoa students, taking all of the Bachelor of Science in Nursing courses in pre-nursing in person at UH West Oahu. And they meet all the requirements of Hawaii's Board of Nursing to obtain a Hawaii registered nurse license. We did launch a small pilot program this past fall, and we are now recruiting for our next cohort to begin fall of 2023, and we will be accepting up to 60 to 80 students in the next cohort. We're also aware of the severe teaching shortage in our public schools, especially on our side of the island. Some quick facts to provide you some context, some perspective on this important teacher preparation program at UH West Oahu. Our program is very, very young. It was established in the fall of 2007, and it focused just on K through 6 teachers. Then in 2015, we added middle and secondary teacher preparation. And our first graduating class in the fall of 2009 consisted of 6 students who were immediately employed in Leeward and Central Oahu schools. Now, to date, we've graduated 353 teachers. 88% of our alumni currently teach in the Leeward and Central Oahu area complex. So mission accomplished. This spring, 2023, we have 192 education majors. We anticipate our largest graduating class of 44 students, 12 of them are also earning a special education, initial and advanced dual licensure in special ed. Our stewardship for our students begins way before they get to our campus or to our community college campuses or to the other 4-year institutions. Our kuleana at West Oahu is to work with and in our K-12 schools to support our students and families to be ready for post-secondary education and to see it as valuable as well as achievable. So an example of this is that at UH West Oahu, we do have a very robust early college program, creating academic pathways between our high schools into our academic programs. In the fall, we had 330 students from Campbell, Kapolei, Waipahu, Pro City, Waianae, Nanakuli, Lelehua, Mililani, and even Roosevelt. So we're moving into your territory. Our pathways again link the academies that these high schools have right into our programs, and we also provide in the schools counseling, financial aid, FAFSA, fiscal literacy, outreach, and admission services. So it's quite labor intensive, the work we do in our high schools. And of course, there are many ways that we support our current students enrolled on campus. But given COVID, and because of the recent announcement that Governor Green, of his establishment of the new department, the Office of Wellness and Resilience, I thought I would mention that last semester, we administered to our entire campus, all of our students and our employees, a national mental health and wellness Healthy Minds survey. And this survey, the PIs for this survey are folks from UCLA, University of Michigan, Wayne State, and Boston College. And we just recently received from them some initial data. Our full report will come at the beginning of the summer, and we will be using this data to really improve our services. So what UH West Oahu needs, much like my other 4-year college family members, is we really need you to help us to strengthen our stewardship of our community, to make sure that our faculty and our staff can increase K-12 to post-secondary to workforce programs, and to increase the services that we can offer to our students so that they can be successful in their career aspirations and for their families. So mahalo for your attention and mahalo for your support.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Last but by no means least, our 7 fabulous community colleges and their education centers. Oh, Josh, all right. Welcome.
You're representing all of them.
Yep. Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee, Joshua Ka'akua. I'm pleased to provide an overview of the University of Hawaii Community Colleges system. The community colleges, we're open access, and we're the lowest cost option to earn a quality post-secondary credential in Hawaii. The community colleges consist of 7 independently accredited community colleges, as well as 3 university centers, 6 educational centers, serving 6 islands. Together we serve about 23,000 students, and that's about 48% of the enrollment in the system. And in addition to our credit enrollment, last year we had about 18,000 non-credit course registrations. And this is providing workforce training for things like electrician's apprentice or plumber's apprentice. We have our 7 community colleges offer a diverse set of programs. Our highest enrolled is liberal arts, so those that allow for that transfer. This is one of our goals, our seamless transfer to a 4-year pathway. We also have a number of career and technical education programs that can prepare students for direct entry into the workforce. Some of our nationally recognized award-winning programs are in culinary arts, creative media, and cybersecurity as examples. The community colleges also deliver early college courses. We've worked with over 54 high schools this past year, primarily through the Department of Education, but also with some private high schools. Online courses and online programs have becoming increasingly popular through the pandemic, and for some colleges, it is now the majority of our course offerings. The community colleges offer online courses and programs in 16-week, 8-week, and 5-week programs, formats. This past year, we've experienced some record on-time graduation rates and success rates. These are things we're quite proud of, in particular at Honolulu Community College and at Windward Community College. And the community colleges as a whole, this past year have awarded almost $5 million in Hawaii Promise funds. And this is to meet our students' academic and financial goals. And thank you, and I'm pleased to be available for questions.
Thank you. So now I think we'll open it up for Q&A. Do you folks have any questions to start with? Because I have so many. You keep us here all day.
I have a question, and it just shows my newness to this area, first time on this committee. I'm very interested, I love the support that we have for training our own teachers and preschool teachers and nurses, etc. I do want to figure out how to expand our mental health care programs, and the training available. We were hearing about the program in Hilo, which is wonderful, and that's something we have a huge shortage of. And so I wanted to find out, is there already something underway to expand that initiative on all the campuses or on particular campuses? And if not, who should we be talking to try to understand?
So I think we have two areas of mental health focus. One is caring for our own students on our campuses. That's been a pretty high stress level. In terms of programs, we have mental health related and counseling related programs on each of our universities. I think we could assemble something maybe and respond. Somebody's taking notes back there and come back to you with a list of all of the programs and maybe the current enrollments and see what we think we could do better.
Yeah, that would be
I think-
great. I know that on Windward, they're having a collaboration with the state hospital,
Yeah.
and that's really exciting. But the numbers are so small compared to our need, and so, yeah, that would be
Yeah.
great. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll follow up. Thank you.
Did you have questions?
I do. I think my question is for VP Young. If not, it might be VP Govea. But my question is actually about the budget.
Yes.
In here, and I'm not sure if maybe it's in the RIM funding, but I don't see anything for CTAR. And I think that when you look at your strategic plan, you folks talk about research and innovation specifically through research. And I think CTAR is completely underutilized, but I think it's also that's a hub for agriculture innovation. And it's not in my district anymore, but the Kealakekua CTAR facility needs a lot of assistance, and I don't see any funding in here specific to any of those research facilities on Hawaii Island, and I think there's 6 of them in total, all of which need support.
Yes. We actually work very closely with the CTAR team. It's undergone a little bit of administrative changes in the last few years, and including at their facilities team level. And so right now, most of their projects, so to speak, are in the RIM funding.
Okay.
And what we do is we ask for, like $100 million. But we see what we get, and then based on what we get, we have to prioritize it amongst all the programs, which CTAR is a part of, but there's 30 or 60 other programs that we have to prioritize within. So we usually work directly with the department to see what their needs are and what can kind of fit within the budget on a year-to-year basis. But they are working on a more comprehensive, like 6-year plan that we can actually present a little more holistically.
Okay.
And we can look at that separately from the RIM. That's the plan right now.
Okay, good. So it is in the works.
It is in the works.
Okay,
Yes.
because if you go and visit, I don't know when the last time, maybe either of you or President, if you've gone to see it, you have buildings that are
Oh, yes.
falling
Yes.
apart, that
Yes.
have been burned down,
Yes.
that have rat feces
Yes.
in them. And these are spaces that really you're sending researchers into these spaces for an industry that is one of the top 3 exports in the
Yes.
state.
Yes.
That needs also a lot of assistance too, that's depending, I think, on the university. So, I mean, we have funding coming into the state now. Let's use it for something that's really going to benefit.
Oh.
And I'd love to see that. In here.
Yes. We'd love to work with you on that.
Okay.
And I'll just add, I was not digressing here, but I was texting to the back of the room, but this has been one of our priorities also for federal support. So it turns out that the degradation of ag research facilities in land-grant states across the country has been a challenge, and Vice President Sirmos is here, and we work with, in particular on this one, with Senator Hirono. So far, no dollars have come in, but if you saw the press release we just put out, I think yesterday, a lot of these initiatives take a couple years to push through, both on the congressional side and frankly also here.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I have one more question, Chair, if that's possible. I don't know who it's best directed at, maybe you, President Lassner, but I did want to ask about, on one of these pages, actually, I think maybe Provost. You talk about the needs, expanded student wellness, and student academic success programs. One of the things that continuously comes up is the need for campus safety. And I think we've also talked about this a little bit as well privately, and there have been bills in the past that have been introduced. But we still need trauma-informed support for confidential advocates, and most importantly, we need amnesty for students who come forward as sex assault survivors on campus.
I think that's a couple of us. So So first of all, on the confidential advocates, we are hiring an additional one now, and we will be hiring another one during this spring semester. So we'll have a net gain of 2. I'm not saying that's optimum, but it's a whole lot better than what we have had. And we also have, so we have confidential reporting, obviously, and they are very strict on that, but also we have a few different other ways, processes by which people can report things in a confidential manner. But we're very cognizant of the need.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the second part of that is the need for amnesty for students as they do come forward, because we are hearing from students that they're not getting that, and they're being told by whether it's a confidential advocate or they're also not sure. Students aren't aware that if they don't go to a confidential advocate, they just go to their professor. That's not a confidential advocate.
Right.
And they're being told that they could be held liable for whatever it may be that has happened to them. So I think that's where the issue is. That's where these students need amnesty, and that's a piece that I hope that
Yeah, let me
you
come
can
back.
also work on.
Let me come back to you on that one.
Okay.
Yeah, something doesn't
I
sound
think
right.
Vice President Gouveia actually looked at this one.
Thank you.
She happens
Thank
to
you.
be an attorney too in her spare time.
Okay, and I'm not trying to knock the university, because I do think that we're trying to work on this together, and I know that Jen Rose has done a really great job with Title IX, so this is not a knock, but this is, I think the practice and the reality from the student side is a little bit different from what, it's not aligning.
Yes. So I think that is something that we've recognized and we've, I think, closed the gap on over the years, as you mentioned, with the work that Jen Rose has been doing. But it is a combination of resources as well as training.
Yeah.
And we are trying to beef up on the training side, as well as Provost Bruno mentioned, bringing in at least on the resources side for the Manoa campus. At the system level, we manage that at the system, but at Manoa, it's, yeah.
And
Okay.
we've also used third parties. I mean, I think you're pretty familiar with the approaches we've taken, where we've had shortages of trained staff as well. But the notion of who you report to and what the implications are is very complicated, and it doesn't help that the federal government keeps changing its mind about these things too.
Yes, and I think we're going to be stuck with the current Title IX rules for a while, so it'd be nice to see it addressed at the university level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're game to continue the conversation on that.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Sure. And I want to be respectful of folks' time, so I'm just going to ask a couple questions. I know that we're going to be able to, over the course of the session, come back and do some deep dive conversations. I really appreciate everyone's attendance and participation in this conversation. We've had a lot of private one-on-ones, and that's going to really help us address these questions better. But my overall concern, because our focus today was kind of an overview of the budget, is I would like to have a more historicized understanding of the state funding. And you talked about like the mix, the diversification of funding sources, and I want to ask for more information about that, more specificity, and also that longer historical kind of analysis. So over the course of the past, and you don't have to provide it now, but I am asking for that information. So over the course of the past, let's say, 2 or 3 decades, how has the state's percentage
Can I do a short narrative?
Yes, please.
Yeah, because I worry about this a lot. So we were unusual until the mid-90s. All tuition collected by the University of Hawaii went back to the State General Fund.
Mm-hmm.
And the state fully funded the basic operations of the university through the general fund appropriations. In the mid-90s, in the midst of a recession, I think the legislature came to realize that it might not be able to fund the growth that the university was going to need. And the statute was changed to have the university retain its tuition. And the language is very explicit in the statute, even today, that should not be used as a basis of reducing general fund appropriations. This was a way to generate more revenue And then what happened is that as the next recessions came along, the legislature reduced our budgets. And as a result, we went from being in the 90s among the lowest tuition rates in the country to we had the fastest, at one point when I looked at this, we had literally the highest rates of increase of tuition in the country. And this has happened everywhere in the nation, that when states divest from their investment in public education, it's not easy to cut anything quickly, and some of that loss is generally made up with tuition rate increases. We got a handle on this about 10 years ago, and we have had very modest increases, many years 0, in some cases decreases, and we've really made a commitment to continue to try to diversify funding sources. So now that said, I do not want to complain about the level of state appropriations. I mean, we are, and we'll get you the data. We are generously supported by this state. That doesn't mean we won't ask for help, and particularly in areas, you know, where we know we need help. We also face, you know, the highest expenses for energy and things like that of anybody in the country. So, you know, some of this is offset, but we're appreciative of the support we get. In particular, most of the increases we've received in the past 10 years, the largest dollar amount has been to support our collective bargaining agreements. And we're very grateful for that support as well. So we'll get you the data. I mean, I think we've seen a trend where over these decades, we've definitely flipped from, you know, close to 100% state support in the mid-90s, you know, depending on the unit, 40 to 60% is typical on both sides. And then the research dollars don't fund operations. They fund us doing work that is important to the people of Hawaii and the nation. So that's sort of the narrative story. When we look at how we do compared to other states, frankly, I'll just say we do well. And we appreciate that.
Because I'll just share the context for that question, and it's essentially the waiver that's being requested. So at the national level, right, there's a lot of concerns about the federal funds, and a lot of state legislators are asking their federal counterparts to call for a waiver from the requirements to fund public education, both at the you know, K-12 area and
The
post-secondary.
so-called maintenance of effort kinds of
Exactly,
provisions.
the maintenance of effort provision. And so they're asking for a waiver from that requirement. And I think the data suggests that over time, and this is in almost every state, that proportion
Yes.
of state revenue that's dedicated towards public education has declined.
And we can show you that number.
And that's what I'm interested in.
That's certainly true here. So
Okay.
the percentage of the state general fund appropriation
Yeah.
to UH has consistently declined.
And it's important, I think, for us to understand that big picture,
Yeah.
because there's a reason that our legislators at the federal level have had to include that language, because they're
Right.
appalled at what they see happening at the state level.
Yeah.
So I just want to kind of have us be able to address that in a
Well,
knowledgeable way.
Yeah, we can get a little one-on-one with you with what we have and make sure we can answer that question. But so there's kind of two questions. One is, what are the gross levels and what are the percentage levels?
Exactly.
We definitely have that data.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you. Thank you.
And for bringing your whole team.
Yeah, great to see you all. Thanks so much.
You have a
And
great team.
Just a special thanks, Board of Regents Chair Randy Moore joined us today.
Yes, thank you.
And thanks for not torturing him.
Well, he was hidden. Okay, meeting is adjourned.